Let's get started then. Thanks a lot for showing up, everybody. I'm kind of shocked and honored by the big room that I get to speak to. When I signed up to be a speaker here, I thought I'd be in like the little room across the hall talking to 12 people, and you guys have upped the game significantly, so thanks a lot. I'm honored to have you here. So my name on the internet is Mr. Money Mustache, and in fact I grew this real mustache just for this conference so I could look the part. So you can recognize me. But in real life I do have a real name. It's not all that secret. It's Pete Adeney, so if you're meeting me in the hall, you're welcome to call me that. And I just like to have a secret identity because I think it goes along with the idea of having an interesting blog, making things more interesting for your readers, which is of course the topic of this conversation. And there's another reason, is that I live in a small city just north of here. It's called Longmont, Colorado, and I'm raising a little boy, 6 years old, and I write controversial stuff, which is not always a good mix with a small town, because I don't want to be walking with my son and have people like, hey, that's Mr. Money Mustache. Hey, Mustache, stash this. So yeah, I just try to keep it a little down low, at least in my own neighborhood. So that's why I try not to publish my real name on the blog or in media stuff. So let's see. Just as another disclaimer, I am not an actual fancy public speaker. I haven't even fired up PowerPoint since about 2005 when I last worked as an office worker. So this presentation is going to be rough and unpolished, and hopefully we can get through it. And I'm going to be reading stuff from my notes because I've got so much important stuff to say, and I would probably forget it if I was just reading from the slides. So the topic today is don't build a blog, build a cult. And the concept behind this in a nutshell is just that the easiest way to grow your audience is by harnessing the natural tendency of our fellow humans to organize themselves into like cult-like followings around ideas or concepts or people that they find interesting. And the idea is that this creates much more reader loyalty than other methods of promoting a blog. And I believe that reader loyalty is the absolute key to having a blog that grows by itself, because you don't want to be doing promotion yourself. So the next slide asks, let me check out the ticker here. Quick background, who is this guy and why should I listen to him? So I'm no expert on personal financing blogging. I only started in April of last year. And it might be this that makes me useful to you because I kind of didn't learn the rules before I started. At the time, I didn't even know I was writing a personal finance blog because I didn't know that category existed. So I just started, all I knew is that I had a story to tell. It was a story of my own early retirement 7 years ago, just through investing in frugality, and I thought it was an unusual story, so I just started writing. So anyway, I just typed these articles into the computer, and people started trickling into the blog, and then it just grew kind of automatically. I didn't know why. And after 8 months, my WordPress stats were up to 1 million page views or something, and it kept growing faster than that. And nowadays, the run rate of the blog is maybe 500,000 page views a month on the main blog, and then another 500,000 on the forum section, so 1 million page views a month, which is not the biggest blog out there, but I didn't even realize that was unusual at all until I talked to some of you out through the Wisebread forum, and they said, dude, you're onto something, this is growing fast. So that made me retroactively go back and figure out what is it maybe that made this blog grow. So what I came up with is I believe I stumbled upon the power of a cult following by accident. So then I researched it, and that's how I came up with this presentation. So how did the blog grow so quickly anyway, is what you're asking. I did almost nothing to cause this growth. I never liked those blog carnivals and link sharing things, so I didn't do them. I never joined the a.k.a. network, if I'm even saying that correctly, even though I think it's valuable to people. I totally ignored SEO because it didn't sound like fun. I figured Google would find me if I'm good enough to be found. And I only post 2 to 4 times a week on the blog. I took my usual long family vacations where I hardly post at all and stuff like that. Now, things I did do at the very beginning were I did a couple guest postings, one on Early Retirement Extreme, which is a popular blog in the same niche that my blog is in. And that was a huge success. Then I did another guest post on the blog called Frugal Dad, and it was a huge failure. Only like 100 people came over or something for the whole thing. So after that, I was done with guest posting. And since then, I haven't really done much of anything. Everything has just been user-generated, and I've really appreciated it. Readers just post my articles, if I'm lucky, on Reddit and Hacker News and other forums. A few readers happen to write for Lifehacker, so they'll just scoop my articles and post it on there. And one of the readers, for example, is the lead blogger for Mark's Daily Apple, so he mentioned me there once. So the basket of readers you get here is really bizarre and interesting, and I'm both surprised and honored to discover these people in the readership. But why is it all happening? I kept asking, why are they coming back, and why are they doing all this wonderful work for me? So I believe it has to do with the cult. So let's read the definition to figure that out a bit more. So the definition of a cult: it's a system of respect and devotion directed toward a particular figure, idea, or object. That's one definition. Another way to say it is a relatively small group of people having beliefs or practices regarded as strange or sinister. So when I read those definitions, what strikes me is, doesn't that sound great for a blog? It does to me, anyway. And maybe it's just me, but I really like the idea of being close to readers and having shared beliefs with them, rather than just preaching out to a crowd of people who aren't really interested in what I have to say. So why are people drawn to cults? I use this CrossFit picture because CrossFit is an ideal example of something that's caught on. It has a cult-like following. It's us versus them. It's great benefits to the readers. All these concepts that we're going to cover in just a few slides. And my wife is a CrossFit athlete, and she's a bit culty about it too. So why are people drawn to them? They might be dissatisfied with their current life. Now, this is definitely true for mass consumers, because there's a lot of debt problems. People aren't really happy with their function in the economic system. Now, this means you and I are starting out in a fertile place as bloggers because our target audience is dissatisfied. So that's ideal for them becoming loyal to a blog if you can help them out. Now, the cult provides answers and help and identity and support from a warm and accepting community. That community is going to be you at first, but if you have an active group of readers who comment and help each other, then they become part of the community as well. Now, good cults, like the ones you and I are wanting to build, they depend on results. We are competing to deliver quality research and writing and real changes in the lifestyles of our readers. So the benefits of the cult following to you as a blogger is sort of what I already touched on, which is it's fun to be part of a silly cult. Readers are more engaged, and they want to hear what you have to say next. I get emails, for example, pretty much every day saying stuff like, man, I read your whole blog, and I forwarded it to all my friends, and even my own mother, and now we're all reading, and they don't think I'm weird for riding my bike to work anymore or hang drying my clothes. And they'll post the blog everywhere. If you have 100,000 readers, even if 1% of them feel like your blog deserves to be promoted, that's a huge army of 1,000 people working for you for free. Even if you have 1,000 readers, you get 10 employees, and you could never hire that many people with the budgets that we operate on as bloggers. And it's for free. So when I check my blog stats each night, I see these really interesting things, like I've seen these weird traffic coming in from Simple Savings in Australia, and I found out it was a blogger named Kylie that's here today that has been doing this, like posting my stuff around, and so thank you very much. It's just an example of people doing work for you. And another funny example that's not part of my presentation, but it just happened last night, is one of the readers in Canada happens to know a reporter for the biggest TV station in Canada. And so they talked about the blog. Oh, I read this great blog. And the reporter said, oh, I should do a story on that. So that lady got in touch with me. And then it ballooned into this crazy thing where CBC, which is the name of the station, it sent like the camera van to the homes of several of my blog readers in Ottawa and interviewed them about their frugal lifestyle and how they're all planning to retire before 40. And it was just hilarious. And there's this straight-laced news interviewer saying all my blog words, like, yes, he's built an army of Mustachians in Ottawa. I was like, yeah, that's exactly, you want to have news people using the silly words that you made up. So, and that's all just because of readers doing that. Like, I could never get myself on CBC, but just through people knowing people, it happened. So those are the benefits. This takes care of your backlinks and your SEO and even your social media, since all the people are going to mention you on Facebook and Twitter, and you are therefore to do what you're supposed to do, which is ignore all this stuff and just write what you want to write about. My theory is that, well, this kind of linking stuff I'm talking about happens for every website. The more dedicated your readers are, the more they like you, the more they're going to want to help you out. So if your goal, even if your goal is to make a good living for your blog, which it is for a lot of people here, this really works in your favor. Because if you eventually write a book or have products that you like and that happen to pay referral fees, your readers are naturally going to want to follow your lead and buy what you have to offer. But there has to be real trust and mutual respect first. So another quick note on a good cult or a bad cult. And this is exactly the kind of behavior you want your blog readers to be doing to show loyalty to your blog. The word cult sometimes comes with a bit of baggage, so I thought I should explain it here because some bad stuff has happened in the past. There were real harmful cults in the past, like the Branch Davidian complex out in Waco, Texas, or the People's Temple in the 70s. We're obviously not trying to be anything like that, but I think the word is valuable to us because if you think about the huge followings that certain things get in the modern world, You got your flash-in-the-pan cults, like usually pop celebrities and TV and movie stars. Britney Spears is a pretty long-lasting one, but most of these flash-in-the-pan ones don't last that long. You know, like the Kardashians, whatever, it's probably not going to be an enduring money-making venture. It's just kind of something that people move on to the next thing. Now, then you have what I like to call the good cults, like Apple with Steve Jobs. Pretty much any pro sports team, NFL, they get a loyal following. People dress up like those guys. They talk about you even when they're not reading your stuff. That's what you and I are going for. Now, these form around products that either really improve the lives of their users, or they form around people who have unusual powers or interesting abilities, and hopefully people who use them for social good. And that's what you and I are going for, I hope. So you want your cult to be a good, long-lasting cult rather than a flash in the pan. So I believe the longest-lasting cults are the ones that appeal to thoughtful and slightly nerdy people. If you think about Star Trek and Star Wars and D&D, you know, it's all these, they're built on neat concepts and ideas, not on fashion and consumer trends. They're stuff that people can have long discussions about. D&D, for example, involves all this strategy and building up your characters, socializing with other good and nerdy people, all in a cool fantasy world. These things help your followers feel smart and unique. Now, why am I talking about nerdy people? It's because what else do nerdy and smart people like? They like investing and earning money, which is ideal for personal finance bloggers. So hopefully by now, I've convinced you that you want to harness the power of a cult. But how do you create one in the first place? If you think about the ideas of a cult again, what you want at the core is a group of people with shared beliefs which are not readily accepted by society. The stronger the beliefs, the better. Now, it works much better if the beliefs appeal to natural human ideals like honesty and integrity and strength, because everybody looks up to that stuff. These things resonate with people, so they'll want to follow along. It's much easier to form a cult based on wanting to be a good person than a cult based on growing raspberries or raising exotic dogs. So the cult is going to tend to be stronger if it's something that not everybody does. If you're just telling people to do boring stuff like contribute to your 401k or check your credit score, get better interest rates, which is what most mainstream financial sites do, you're not going to be very likely to build a cult following. Now, there should be an us versus them contrast with a desire to help and convert others towards your cult. As an example, my blog talks about spending less money even when you earn a lot, and learning to completely unplug the idea of happiness from the idea of material luxury. In fact, I even teach people that feeling voluntary discomfort, like putting your air conditioning as hot as you can or riding your bike as far as you can, getting sore muscles all the time, makes you happier. Discomfort makes you happier. Now, here in America, that's a controversial idea. Not everybody says that, so that allows me to be different, and yet it is actually somewhat true. Like, being a more badass person tends to make you happy. So we got the us, and then we got the them, the people who set their air conditioning to 72 and stay inside all day. So that's nice. That allows the Mustachians to have a unique identity, but in a good way. Along with this, there should be a desire to help others, because if people think that your blog helps others, then they're going to want to spread the blog in order to help their friends. And this way is a little bit similar to organized religion, just because there's a lot of wanting to do good and spread the word of something that people believe in. And both of those things spread from the desire of people wanting to help each other. So building identity among your readers. The readers of your blog should feel like they have something in common with you and with each other. So besides the basic message, there's a few other ways that you can help out in this area. Number one, as I mentioned, the healthy comment section. And to get a healthy comment section, you got to participate a lot, and you also have to prune your comments. You can't just leave like flames in there or junk or just people going off topic. It's worthwhile politely deleting stuff, because when the other readers come, they want to see only interesting comments. If your comment section starts to look like an MSN article where it's all crap, then people are just not going to read it anymore. Another idea for building identity is to share the stories of your readers on the blog. So you go out and meet the readers of your blog, and then you write about them. I'd like to do case studies where people ask me for advice, and then we share it. So everybody feels like, hey, I'm in that situation too. So they have some identity with each other. If you have a forum, it lets them communicate directly with each other. It's pretty easy to start a forum. I added one to my own blog just by adding this simple machines PHP stuff, just running it on the server. People just flooded in there and started talking amongst themselves, and it automatically makes the community stronger. So it was a pretty neat trick, which another blogger taught me about. So, the charismatic cult leader. Now, this is a neat concept, and it's like the cherry on the top of a good cult. On top of the message and the identity that we just talked about, your cult will do much better if it has the leader, which is you, of course. Now, looking at some other cult leaders, we find that they have unusual powers and abilities that make them interesting. If you think about it, Steve Jobs, he was not the typical CEO. He wrote his own ticket and confidently shunned conventional wisdom. He just let his opinion be known, didn't even dress like other CEOs. And if you compare him to the CEO of a competitor like Samsung, I don't even know the name of the Samsung competitor. So Steve Jobs, in the public eye, is probably a much better cult leader. And Apple is indeed a perfect consumer cult. Like, they make a lot of money because of that loyalty. Warren Buffett even is, I would think of him as kind of a cult leader to investors because he displays extreme modesty. He's got this quiet but unshakable confidence. He just knows he's going to succeed, and he knows America's going to succeed in the long run, which I enjoy. And he delivers incredibly consistent results, like the best investor in the world for 50 years in a row. It's just like, oh, the guy's like amazing. So everyone just wants to follow him because he's got this power. Or even good old Arnold Schwarzenegger, in a certain sense, he always insisted on dominating. He got box office records for decades. Before that, he was like set bodybuilding records for decades. So he seems to have kind of a superpower. And then he reached the top in politics, or at least the most you can get as an immigrant to the U.S. So he got a cult following. And it's too bad about his crash at the end with all that stuff in the news last year. But his followers still believe that he's going to return bigger than ever, which is a true mark of a cult leader. So maybe by this point, you are ready to be at least a little bit of a cult leader. So what's the number one confidence, what's the number one characteristic you need? And I would say it's confidence. Now, you need to reassure people that everything is great and that they are on a great path if they're following the principles of your blog. You never want to display fear or pessimism about the overall quality of the future. I mean, you can display opinions and this is good and this is bad, but there should be this underlying, unshakable confidence that the world is a good place. This kind of stuff flows straight through to your readers, and they're going to love it because not many people get confidence in their everyday lives because the regular media sells on fear. So guess what? That leaves strength open for the bloggers to take over. Now, other handy characteristics of a cult leader is anything that makes you interesting or unusual. Now, just a few examples from our own conference here. The Financial Samurai has unusual income and unusual optimism. So people naturally want to read what he has to say because they're like, wow, man, that guy makes so much money off his business and his blog. I want to be like that guy. Mr. Winnie Mustache, being me, I have the unusual attributes that I retired at 31 years old. And so that's what the blog is based on. But then there's also unusual skills like carpentry, I like welding, and I build houses and stuff from scratch. And a lot of people find that interesting. So I write about it. You know, I'll mention, oh, I built this thing, and I'll teach people how to build stuff. So it's a little different. Even our own thousandaire, I don't know if he's in this room right now, but he's got devastating good looks and a golden singing voice. Now, who would not want to watch the stuff of a guy with those superpowers? Oh, there he is. So if you have any unusual abilities or knowledge or anything, which you do, just make sure that makes its way onto your blog so people have something to think of you as distinctive. Another leader characteristic is being able to boldly share your opinions. Now, you want to ignore the bland professional advice that newspaper journalists use and actually share your personality. So when you're writing, you do everything that journalists don't do. You use I and you and us. You talk about like you and your readers like, oh yes, we enjoy this. And so they're in a club with you. You share details of your life. But they should be interesting details like financial dramas between your friends, plans that you've got for your own financial life or your investments. It should relate to finance or whatever your blog talks about, and not just things like how your kitty spilled her litter or the water heater leaked all over the basement floor. You should be focusing on good news, and it should be relevant to what you're talking about. So we're on to a few finer points. You are a writer as a blogger, so that means you get to use language and mantras and stuff to your advantage. And an example here is the Deadhead from the Grateful Dead. There was a lot of neat terms and slogans that go along with cult movements. So you should be playing with language. And on Mr. Winnie Mustache, I've got these words that I just made up in the process of writing the blog. Like Mustachians is the name of all the readers collectively. Mustachianism is the name of the fake religion that we all follow, which is basically just frugality and working hard. But, you know, it's fun to have a name for it. There's badassity, complainy pants, wussy pants, sucker consumer, not to mention good old-fashioned swearing. So these are kind of parts of my own style of language that I've adopted for the blog, and it's really great and funny to see people adopting them and using them as if they were real words, like that CBC anchor that I was talking about earlier. And they're popping up all over the internet, spreading the culture, which I find very funny. So other movements have their own little mantras too. If you remember Occupy Wall Street, they're always talking about the top 1% and we are the 99%. They repeat those phrases and those bond them together as, as a movement. Stephen Colbert talks about all his followers as the Colbert Nation, like as if they're a whole different country, which I think is funny. Apple retail employees, when you get a job there, they're taught that it's not a job, it's a mission to enrich people's lives. So they don't even say, I have a job. It's kind of culty. Even gold speculators, they always say, gold's not appreciating. Everything else is depreciating relative to gold. And I enjoy that because I could apply that to my own beer belly and say, it's not growing. Everything else is just shrinking relative to my belly. Oh, just left in the microphone here. The blog name itself should be unique and interesting. Now, if someone was starting a new blog right now, I'd suggest not naming it something like XYZ Personal Finance. In fact, naming it after the blogger is one idea because it helps to reinforce the idea of the leader. In that sense, I think that the Financial Samurai is an excellent blog name, and obviously my own blog's title I happen to like since I made it up. Now, to finish up, I just want to look at the bigger picture. What is successful financial blogging? Many people think your job is just to deliver financial advice to the readers, but I would say that's what textbooks are for. Instead, I'd like to think of it as two things that people expect from the internet these days: entertainment and lifestyle change, like behavioral change. Results, in other words. You want to help people change their lives. So teaching them about finance can help, but you got to pair these lessons with actual behavior changes so that they're going to apply them. That's where the real challenge is, because the knowledge is already out there. So now we've reached one of the more exciting and often overlooked concepts in any kind of blogging, especially financial blogging, is adding versus extracting value. Now, your blog growth, at least according to me, depends on the net value you provide to readers. So when you do stuff like that's the value added minus the value that you extract for yourself. Writing and research and sharing and commenting and plain hard work you do for your blog, these all add value. But when you do stuff like obvious ads and SEO and link sharing and stuff, you are subtracting the value, and you might be getting it for yourself, but you're taking it away from your readers. Now, your blog growth depends on how much you leave behind for your readers to capture. In other words, the more you give away for free, the more readers you get. And once you have a large readership, money-making is easy, and I only learned this from talking to other bloggers. It's like, this is a very high-income profession if you have a lot of readers. You can do it with almost no selling out, and you can see Pat Flynn as an example of that. He's not spammy at all, but he makes tons of money off his blog systems. Now, you can make a great living with just 100,000 readers delivering $1 a year on average. And if you want more, just get 1 million readers. Now, avoiding distractions from value, just as a couple examples, when you review a product or a credit card, is it to bring in revenue for yourself, or is it to help your readers? Instead of charging for an ebook, would your readers become more loyal if it were free? This conference, well, it's valuable to us, of course, it's a lot of fun. It's still a distraction from adding value to our readers because we're not at home typing on our blogs right now. My readers don't even know or care that I'm here because I couldn't find any direct value to them to tell them that I'm here. In fact, my wife made me come here, but I'm very glad that I did. So you should always weigh the interblogger networking and promotion against the cost of less time to deliver value to your readers. So on the same idea of quality, quality also gets you guest postings, I would say. Like guest posts on a bigger blog, everybody knows that's a great way to get new readers. I would say it's the best way. But most guest post requests are rejected by the big blog owners. But why is that? And I think it's because you submit your request, and the owner is going to look at your site, if you're lucky. And if he or she sees massive value to the readers, you might get the post. But on the other hand, if you're displaying ads and selling things rather than delivering value, it would be embarrassing for that blogger to feature your content because it's a de facto endorsement of what you're doing, and then they're going to take some crap from their readers, even if your post is well written. A couple examples of some foregone cash that I did in my own, money that I gave up in my own blog on this trade-off is I don't run ads above the fold, despite the, like on that front page, because even though AdSense, Google AdSense says you can earn 200% or 122% more or whatever, I don't do any kind of paid guest postings or text links or SEO compromised titles, or I don't have any revenue generating products. And a funny and pertinent example, because we have lots of Chase people here today, I sacrificed $4,000 a month from the Chase company because I was referring their credit cards. One of the reps asked me to stop swearing in my blog, and I was like, I had to say F that, because because I would be selling out my own principles of free speech and just for more money, which is not acceptable, especially in my blog, which talks about financial independence. By the way, if any Chase people ever want to reverse this decision, we can do business again as long as I can keep swearing. And the final idea is that you can tuck your sponsored links away in a recommendations page rather than putting them right in your article and saying, this product on Amazon is very handy. I think it's better to just say, if you would like what I like, you can look on this page and I'll have my recommendations there. So we're getting close to the end. The next page is why I don't like SEO, and instead I go for the concept of stickiness. So which would you rather do? Would you rather get 1,000 new visitors a day from search engines and have 1% of them stick around, or maybe get 200 new readers from search engines and have 25% of them stick around? Option 2 causes 5 times faster blog growth, and plus the cult effect due to loyalty, because the ones that do stick around are going to spread much more. So these numbers I didn't just make these up. These are real-world approximations of what happens to different blogs of people that I talk to. And because of this, I always write for long-time readers, not to extract a few bucks from search engine visitors who happen to be passing through. So the top tips for stickiness is avoid spamminess at all costs. Spamminess is the opposite of stickiness. No flashing. When someone goes to your blog, there should not be one of those pop-up things that says, please subscribe, because that's getting in between their face and your writing. No kind of flashing ads. I would argue that in their blog, you should use rich colors and non-stock pictures, because everybody else is using plain white and stock pictures. It should look like a good magazine and like we're like a lounge that somebody walked in, not just a cheap web page. You should provide an easy way for the readers to read all of your posts, including, and plus some top 10 and top 50, top 100 selected by you. I added this to my blog because I saw it lacking on others when I started reading, for example, Early Retirement Extreme. It's really hard to find the first post in that blog and then read your way through. So I added a little box at the top of mine where it's really easy. It's like, welcome new readers, would you like to read everything? Just that little feature alone has probably added 1 million or 2 million page views to my total, because a lot of people actually do go and start reading stuff. So that's kind of an easy way to get some loyalty. And don't feel locked into a fixed schedule. So I think this tip has been given in other presentations too, but never write because it's Tuesday. Only write when you have something to say. You don't want to just be making stuff up, because that's not going to be valuable content that people enjoy reading 2 years from now. All right, the final word is simply that blogging is a big and competitive world, much bigger than I realized when I got into it. I didn't know that there were millions of blogs, and I didn't know that there were 400 awesomely dedicated bloggers so into the craft that they would come to Denver to do it. And I'm glad I didn't know that, because I would have been afraid to start if I did. But what I do see is a lot of small blogs copying each other and following established tradition. You know, they're following the tips of Darren Rowe, the pro blogger, and stuff like that, and with a huge focus on revenue generation right from the start, which I think that's kind of like a mosh pit, and everyone's fighting for the same thing. And the way out of the mosh pit is to be different, not to outperform the competition at the same game everyone else is playing. So if you want a cult-like following, you just need to find the right way to be different. And that's it. Thanks a lot for listening. That's the end of my presentation. I can see we still have quite a bit of time if anyone has questions. And if you're too shy to ask questions here, I'm just going to be hanging out for the entire rest of this conference. So you can ask me questions in the hall too. But
you mentioned that you have a forum, and I've seen a few other blogs have some as well. How did you get it started? Like, how did you get people to actually start contributing to it?
Yeah, well, I didn't know that forums were a good idea until one of my readers taught me that, and he said, man, other blogs have forums, and it's very good, but we want to have a forum here because I want to talk to the Mustachians. So the way I did it is I figured out how to do it from a technical perspective. For me, that was the Simple Machines PHP script. It's just free stuff. You install that on your server, customize it, and then you've got it, it shows up as a new URL. Then you write about it on your blog and say, guess what, everybody, there's a forum, and you link to it. People will start flooding in. And then I promote it every now and then. Like I mention discussions from the forum over time, and I'm like, I saw a really interesting discussion in the forum this morning, and I'll underline that as a link, so it brings more people in over time. Maybe I should ask this guy, just to make Philip walk around more.
Where are we at? A couple of years, video was all the rage. Do you find that video is less effective now as it used to be?
I'm definitely no expert on video because I've only put one video on my site up ever. I think it's a great idea if you've got the kind of charisma to go in a video and you've got ideas what to do. Like 1,000 Years videos are great. And, but for myself, just the stuff I talk about, it doesn't lend itself to video. It would be like me preaching to people like I'm doing now. People would rather be able to do it at work, you know, and so they want a text format. Now, for other stuff, video works well, like something that's funny. If you're doing something funny, video is awesome. Or if you're doing something practical, like teaching people how to do stuff, video is a lot better than technical writing. And I'm actually going to add some videos to my own site relating to home renovation stuff because I write about that occasionally. So I'm going to film myself building stuff, you know, like replacing windows in a house to teach people how to do it. So it's valuable if you have the content right for it.
What would you say is your most controversial position that you have not, you know, gone away from, even after a lot of opposition?
Let's see, I don't think there's any really negative controversial stuff, but I just kind of have an insistence, you know, for example, in the lifestyle tips, I insist that people should live close to work. I'd say that's one of the most controversial ones because everybody's got all these excuses why they have to live in a 40-mile-away suburb because of this reason or that reason, and I insist, nope, if you're going to have a job, you have to live within biking distance of it, you know, because that's the way to get rich. You can't be burning up your money in a car. You know, that's kind of one of my principles on the blog. And so I have the odd back and forth with people who just come into the blog and they're defending their long commutes, and then luckily the readers step in and they're like, yeah, I used to think that too, but now I found a place to live that has good schools, and most people just assume they have to commute. So I'd say that's my battle that I have with the world, because America is the commuting nation. I think it should be the biking nation. So I'm still working on wrenching all the cars out of the grips of this country. So I'm fighting America on cars. Any other questions right now?
All right.
This question is back to the forums, and I wondered when you started it, did you need to monitor it to keep the discussion on track, to make sure people weren't using it to advertise their own stuff or spam, or heaven forbid there were any cuss words on there?
Those get extra points. But yeah, a forum, just like a comment section, does need moderating, and it's a lot bigger content. Like my forum gets more page views than the main blog, or definitely a lot more words get printed on that every day. But the solution to that is if you got some loyal readers, you can recruit them as moderators, and they will automatically spend all their day goofing off at work reading your forum for you. They report the spam and delete it for you. You give them powers, and they're like, oh, I'm important. So then they do all this work for you. And you thank them and praise them, and it's just a very nice symbiotic relationship. People just naturally love forums and helping people. And even though you as a blogger, you don't have time to read everything people post, but somebody has time if you spread out the task. I have 5 moderators on my blog, and that's big enough. But if it gets bigger, you can just get some more.